is Babul Jafa'i Anil Qur'an, the chapter of distancing yourself from the Qur'an. Chapter of distancing oneself from the Qur'an. He says, it comes from Samura ibn Jundub radiallahu anh, in a narration which is from the dreams of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Atani layla atiyan, that at night time, two people came to me. وَإِنَّهُمَا ابْتَعَثَانِ, and they woke me up. وَإِنَّهُمَا قَالَ لِي, and both of them said to me, انطلق, proceed. وَإِنِّي انطلقت مَعْهُمَا, so I proceeded with them. وَإِنَّا آتَيْنَا عَلَى رَجُلٍ مُضْطَجِعٍ, then we went and seen a man who was laying down. وَإِذَا آخَرُ قَائِمٌ عَلَيْهِ بِصَخْرَةٍ, and another man was standing above him holding a stone. وَإِذَا هُوَ يَهْوِي بِالصَّخْرَةِ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ, and he kept throwing this rock on the man's head. He threw the rock on the man's head. فَيَثْلَغُ رَأْسَهِ, so his head became injured and open, split open. فَيَتَدَحْدَعُهُ الْحَجَرَ هَا هُنَا, so the stone started to roll away. It rolled away. فَيَتْبَعُ الْحَجَرَ فَيَأْخُذُهُ, and the man will continue running after the stone and pick it up. فَلَا يَرْجِعُ إِلَيْهِ حَتَّى يُصْبِحَ رَأْسُهُ كَمَا كَانَ, and he will not return to the man who was laying down until the head will go back to how it used to be. ثُمَّ يَعُودُ عَلَيْهِ فَيَفْعَلُ مِثْلَ مَا فَعَلَ فِي الْمَرَّةِ الْأُولَى, then he would repeat this again. When he would throw the stone on his head, it will crack open his head, the stone will roll away, he will go back and pick up the stone, and when he reaches back, the head is back into its original form, and he'll come back and continually repeating this. قال هذا رجل علمه الله القرآن, they said that this is a man who Allah taught him the Qur'an, فنام عنه بالليل, and he fell asleep from it at night time. We explain what that means. وَلَمْ يَعْمَلْ فِيهِ بِالنَّهَارِ, and in the daytime he did not act in accordance to it. And in the daytime he did not act in accordance to it. يُفْعَلْ بِهِ لَا يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, this will be his situation. It will be done to him like this until the day of judgment. It will be done to him like this on the day of judgment. This narration reported by has been reported by Bukhari rahimahullah. Another narration says, الَّذِي يَأْخُذُ الْقُرْآنَ فَيَرْفُضُهُ, this will be the situation of a man who took the Qur'an, فَيَرْفُضُهُ, and he turned away from it. وَيَنَامُ عَنِ الصَّلَاةِ الْمَكْتُوبَةِ, and he slept, he would sleep and not pray the obligatory prayers. And it comes to say Muslim from Abi Musa radiallahu anhu, أنه قال لقراء البصرة, that he said to the reciters al-Basra, أُتْلُوهُ, read the Qur'an, وَلَا يَطُولَنَّ عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَمَدِ, do not let the time pass by, do not leave it off, mean the Qur'an, let the time pass by, فَتَكْسُ قُلُوبَكُمْ, and then due to that, you leaving it off for so long, your hearts become hardened. كَمَا كَسَتْ قُلُوبُ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلُكُمْ, as the hearts of those before you became hardened. And it comes in Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, إِنَّ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ لَمَّا طَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدِ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, that Bani Israel, they left off their book for a long while, and due to them leaving it off for so long, their hearts became hardened. اخترعوا كتاب من عند أنفسهم, then they made up a book from themselves. استحلته ألسنتهم, their tongues deemed it to be beautiful. وكان الحق يهول بينهم وبين كثير من شهواتهم, whilst the truth used to be a barrier between them and much of their desires. حتى نبذوا كتاب الله وراء ظهورهم, and then they put the book behind their backs and they start to follow their desires. So this chapter is regarding not being distant from the Qur'an, not distancing oneself from the Qur'an, and not leaving it off, and not reading it, and not acting in accordance to it. As for the first hadith from Samura ibn Jundub, then Samura ibn Jundub ibn Hilal radiallahu an is a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, one who was great in regards to trust, and he was very truthful in his speech, and he was very severe against the Khawarij, the Al-Haruriyya, who were at that time part of the Khawarij. He was very severe against them. And he lived in Basra, and Ziyad, he put him in charge of Basra for 6 months, and then he put him in charge of Kufa for 6 months. And he narrated from the Prophet ﷺ much hadith, but that which prevented him from narrating much hadith is, he said, that I used to be a young man in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and I used to memorize a lot from him. Then he said, but what would prevent me from speaking and narrating those hadith is that there were people who are older than me. There were men who are older than me. So he memorized much, but what prevented him from speaking and narrating those hadith is that there are ones who are older than him, so he'd prevent himself from speaking. Atiyan, those who came to the Prophet in this dream were Jibril and Mikail, as comes in the narration. The two who came to the Prophet in this dream were Jibril and Mikail, as comes in Bukhari. Al-Muttaji' means that he was laying down on one of his sides, whether that is right or left. The Shaykh said, Al-Ittija' yakun ala shaq, siwa al-ayman wal-aysar. that al-ittija, laying down in this way, is on one's left side or right side. Then he says that what is intended by this man, Allah taught him the Qur'an, and he would sleep from it at night time. At night time he would be sleeping. Some of the scholars, they mentioned that he would not pray Salatul Fajr. What is intended? That he would not pray Salatul Fajr. As reported, as mentioned in another narration. Not that he used to sleep and not pray Qiyamul Layl. For Qiyamul Layl is mustahab, and there's no punishment for the one who leaves it. Qiyamul Layl is mustahab, and there's no punishment for the one who leaves it. What is intended? That he used to sleep and not pray the obligatory prayers. So Allah taught him the Qur'an, again the Qur'an, but he would not even pray the obligatory prayers. And as for the daytime when he would come, he would not act in accordance to the Qur'an. Rather, he would oppose the commandments of the Qur'an. And this will be his punishment until the day of judgment, showing us that this punishment occurs where? In the grave. This punishment occurs in the grave. So he'll be punished like this in his grave until the day of judgment. And this is one of the proofs the scholars they mention as a proof against those who reject the punishment of the grave. And those who reject is the Rafidah. So this is evidence against them. As mentioned from Uthman radiallahu anhu, the Prophet said that the grave is the first stage of the hereafter. If you are safe in that stage, then that which is after is easy. Easier than it. And if you are not saved, then that which is after it is more severe than it. Ibn Hubayra, he said that regarding the next narration, the Rafdul Qur'an, leaving off the Qur'an and staying and being distant from the Qur'an after memorizing it is a great sin, is a great crime, because it makes one think that he found something in the Qur'an which necessitated him to leave it off. When he was accepting upon the Qur'an, and now it's as if he found something in the Qur'an that made him think he should leave it off. So when he left off the most noble of things, which is the Qur'an, he was punished with the most noble body part, the head. Since he left the Qur'an and distanced himself from the Qur'an and his commandments and his prohibitions, he was punished with the most noble part of the body, and that is the head. As for the narration where he mentioned that he used to sleep and not pray the obligatory prayers, some of the scholars, they mentioned that it could also mean Salatul Isha. We mentioned Salatul Fajr, but some of the scholars also mentioned that it could mean Salatul Isha. Now the scholars, they ask, why is it that if he left off the obligatory prayers, why is it that he's being punished with the stone on his head? The scholars, they mentioned the reason for that is that, as Ibn al-Arabi mentioned, that the punishment was placed upon his head because the sin occurred due to sleep. And how does he sleep? With his eyes closed. So due to the punishment, due to him sleeping with his head, the punishment is also on his head. As for the nation of Abi Musa radiallahu anhu, utlu, meaning read the Qur'an, and do not leave it off for a long time, and then due to that your hearts become hardened. Meaning if you leave the Qur'an off for a long time, and not read it, and not ponder over it, and not take its commandments, stay away from its prohibitions, then due to that will be a means for your heart to become hard. Your heart will become hard. As Allah says, فَوَيْلُ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُم مِّن ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, that woe to those who their hearts have become hardened from the remembrance of Allah, أُولَٰئِكَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ, they are in a clear misguidance. الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتاب متشابه مثانية تقشعر منه الجلود الذين يخشون ربهم ثم تلين جلودهم وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله. That Allah sent down the best of speech, a book mutashabihan, that parts resemble each other. Mathani, oft repeated. تقشعر منه جلود الذين يخشون ربهم, that the skin of those who fear the Lord shivers from it. ثم تلين جلودهم, then their skin becomes calm. وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله, and their hearts to the remembrance of Allah. And then Allah mentioned also another ayah, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Is it not time for those who are affected by the Qur'an, their hearts are affected by the remembrance of Allah, that they become affected by the Qur'an, وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ, and that which is sent down from the truth, وَلَا يَكُونُ كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ, and they not be like those who the book was given to them from before. فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم, the time became long, they distanced themselves from their book, and then their hearts became hardened. وَكَثِيرٌ مِنْهُمْ فَاسِقِينَ, and many of them were evildoers. So a Muslim should be aware of distancing himself from the Qur'an. A Muslim should be aware from distancing himself from the Qur'an and reading it. As for the narration in Mas'ud radiallahu anh, that Bani Israel is a name or nickname for the Prophet. Which Prophet? Yaqub alayhi salam. And the Shaykh mentioned from the mistakes is that you name the Yahud as Israel. That you say the Yahud are Israel. So, Bani Israel, they made a book for themselves and they found halawa, some sweetness in reciting of that book or reading it. And before that, the book that they had used to be a barrier between them and their desires. The book that they had used to be a barrier between their desires. But when they threw it behind their backs and did not follow His commandments, it was a means for them to become misguided. It was a means for them to become misguided. For that reason, Allah says, وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ نَبَذَ فَرِيقٌ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. That when the message of Allah came to them from Allah, مُصَدِّقٌ, bearing true to that which was with them, they threw it behind their backs. فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ, a group from them who were given the book, كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ, they threw the book of Allah behind their back, they did not follow it. كَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, as if they did not know. Meaning that when you occupy yourself with falsehood, if you occupy yourself with falsehood, it takes you away from the truth. Similarly, if you occupy yourself with truth, then it will distance you away from falsehood. So that what you occupy yourself with, it will lead you to the right path or the wrong path. If you occupy yourself with constantly listening to music and doing haram, it's not going to lead you to the truth. But if you occupy yourself with the Qur'an and recitation and sitting with the good people and reading the books of the scholars or reading books of hadith, that will lead you to what? Staying away from falsehood and being accepted upon the truth. So that what you occupy yourself with, it will end up being your result of that what it leads you to. So it's befitting for a Muslim to occupy himself with the worship of Allah and reading the Qur'an and doing dhikr constantly. So this narration is clear in regards to warning from staying away and being distant from the Qur'an. And it shows that the previous nations, what happened to them was that they distanced themselves from their book and it led to what? The hardening of the hearts. They distanced themselves from their book for a long time and led to hardening of the hearts. And for that reason, a Muslim should not follow their path, but follow the path of those who are guided. So we'll stop with this, inshallah. If there's any question, we'll take it now. If not, we'll continue next week, inshallah.